whatever day of the week it is.
Yeah, because we have no idea what day it is anymore.
I know, such is the life of a pandemic. I'm Sonja. I am currently a director of intergovernmental relations and strategic partnerships at the City of Vancouver, longest title ever. I work with the provincial and federal government to advocate for social issues like housing, transportation, childcare, the opioid crisis, any kind of issues that are taking place in our city that we want to receive more support from senior levels of government to get more funding, to get more support to help people out. I'm also a board of director on the West Vancouver Police. I was appointed by the province last year, right before the pandemic and right before all the police brutality was exposed in the US and all of that, the blow up in the media. So it's been a really interesting time to be involved with that board. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell. And yes, I am a BCIT grad, which is why I'm here.
We're both BCIT grads. That's how we met.
That's how we met. Yeah.
Okay, so
okay, your turn.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Behmann. I am currently, so 2020 was an interesting one. I was working for Native Shoes for almost 4 years in their community partnerships program, and it was really fun. It was more event related. So when the pandemic hit a month later, I was let go naturally because there were no more events and things happening. So I ended up having a really nice 7 months off. I remember you telling me years ago that if you ever get a little break, like enjoy it because we'll always be working. So I really took that to heart this time around. Like I just made sure I made the best of it instead of being anxious the whole time. It was glorious. I got to play tennis and do things I haven't done in so long. So it was really, really nice.
So good.
It was so good. And then recently, I'm coming up on 2 months. I just started working with BCITSA Footwear, which is another local footwear brand. I've had a few people ask me, like, do you only work in shoes? And actually, no, I did really. Not really, but at the last two, yeah. And I do the community partnerships with BCITSA, so similar, but in this sense, it's a bit more digital. So reaching out to our community digitally, working with them on offers, codes, doing an affiliate influencer program, which is more social media related, which really is new for me. I'm not very well versed in it. So it's kind of interesting to really dive in. And what BCITSA does really well is digital marketing. It's how people have gotten to know about the brand digitally anyway. So I thought, you know what, I can get in here and add my flair to a company that's doing digital really well. I could add the in-person thing. So I'm getting creative at the moment with how we could do events online and how we can, because it's still a newer company. It's coming up on 3 years, how we can do digital engagement with staff, because I actually got hired during a pandemic. And the interesting thing about that is I've barely met anyone in the company. You get a laptop, you go home, and now I'm trying to Zoom and Google Hangout at every digital meeting of trying to meet people. So it's very tricky because you have no idea, and it's very hard to get to know people unless you set time aside to get to know them.
Yeah, but I know you will look back at this time and you will smile because you took on a new role in a new company, new position that didn't exist before, and invented everything, all the systems around you. So it's during a pandemic with no real human connection, So I think I know it's challenging, and I know it's a tricky time, but I also know that you're going to look back at this and be very proud of yourself for what you are creating and will create. I think there's an opportunity during this pandemic to really invent the wheel and look at things from other perspectives, right? It forces us to get out of our comfort zones, what we've known previously, to do things differently, right? So
it is very challenging. That, I mean, there's no denying it. Not just my situation, right? Like people
yeah,
have
of
worked
course.
throughout this whole thing. It's been really rough. Most
Yeah.
people I know have had a really hard go at it. They're adapting, they're pivoting, they're trying to figure it out. So it's not easy for me. I actually got hired during boxing, no, not Black Friday, like the busiest time. And I thought, oh,
Right.
it'll be chill. And I got thrown in and they'd given me that heads up, but I was overwhelmed. Like it was
Totally.
a lot. And
Yeah.
you just have to I'm really grateful that I have habits like meditation and things that I've gotten climatized to,
Mhm.
that really help basically ground me and help figure things out for me. Like instead of resorting to a ton of Netflix and TV, I was reading a bunch as well. Like just making sure I was taking time for myself and my mental well-being, because you can get overwhelmed. Like
Yeah.
whenever it wasn't raining outside or weather was decent, like going for walks. I think
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's really important. So I was actually going to ask you, is there any daily practices that you have that you find really work for you?
Yes. For me, exercise just like sets the day off right. Like for me, I I know what it takes to fill my cup. And one of those ingredients is exercise. There's a lot of things that you can't control right now. Plus, having two kids, um, life is quite full. And so, if I can carve out, 40 minutes a day for just me and, putting my phone away, putting all distractions away, and just get a workout in, that's huge. It just sets me up for success. So,
That's massive.
yeah, and on the theme of this whole conference is called investing in yourself, right? And I really do think that when you invest in yourself, whatever that means, like whatever the ingredients that you need to do that, that's what will lead to other successes in your life, right? Like I think when you do things deliberately and bet on yourself, that's when you will see results, and that's when you'll be a happier person. And when you're a happier person, you just a better contributor to society, you're a better colleague, you're a better, wife, husband, spouse, whatever your roles are. So yeah, it's important to give that gift to yourself, whatever that is, right? So
So let me ask you then, when was the time that you really bet on yourself? Like you really took a courageous, bold move,
mhm,
and a bunch of people probably advised you and told you it was not the right thing to do, but
yeah,
you went ahead and did it. Can you think of a time when or you
yeah.
can think of several times? You probably did it a couple of times, I feel like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely, I do like to push myself, and I do like to get outside of my comfort zone. I really believe that if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. I'll share a story of a specific time in my life when I did that. So I was 23. I had just finished my undergrad. So after BCIT, I did Royal Roads to do my undergrad in communications. And as I was wrapping up, I knew that I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more. Education has always been instilled in me, that it's a good investment, never gonna regret getting more education. And I was looking at my options, and one of my friends who was in grad school in London had told me about a school in Spain that has an excellent reputation with a great international relations program, which is what I wanted to get into. It was a bit out of left field for me, but I was curious, and I started doing my research and became more and more curious, and one thing led to another, and I ended up applying, and getting accepted into this program. And fast forward like 6, 7 months, I was moving out of my apartment with two of my friends, and leaving my comfort zone to go um, explore. And I was 23. I was super nervous about being in a foreign country. I didn't know anyone there.
You didn't
Uh,
even know the language.
I didn't know the language. I'd
Yeah,
never been to Madrid before.
right.
Um, but there was just something in me that was like, Sonja, get out of your comfort zone. You're too comfortable right now. There was just something nagging inside of me. And I just deep down knew that this was going to be a very growing and transformative year for me. And I know, like, on the outside, people were like, what? Why are you leaving? And I had like a full-time job lined up. Yeah. So, anyways, I just knew I needed to go for it. In hindsight, it ended up being one of the most forming years of my life. as far as, getting to know myself, thinking about what I want to do, thinking about who I want to be. I mean, those thoughts still swirl around my head. And I think we should always want to grow and learn. And, there's a time and place for it. You don't always want to be sitting there anxiously, but I think it's healthy to want growth in your life. My experience in Spain wasn't necessarily about the degree that I received. It was more about the self-growth that took place that year and kind of set me up for future experiences and having the ability to pivot, having the ability to leave my comfort zone and just know deep down that it's going to be okay, even though I didn't know what was going to be on the other side of it, right? So I really do think you have to be brave to get to where you are. Like if you want something different, you have to do something different, right? So what about you? Tell me about a courageous decision that has served you.
Well, for me, so we worked together at a radio station back in the day. Then we got a job together fundraising money for events. And we were supposed to keep that contract. That contract was supposed to last. We were promised those jobs and we were laid off instead. I remember still being in so much shock because I couldn't believe we were laid off because we were promised those jobs. You literally looked at me and you were like, we've just been let go. We need to leave the office, because I went back to my desk to work because I couldn't believe it. And I remember leaving that day. It was August. It was a sunny day. And you saying, okay, well, what do you really want to do? And I was like, oh, I want to go snorkel in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And you were like, well, then you should just go do it. I was like, well, I didn't save for that. I'm not really set up for that. Long story short, all the signs just started pointing to that. I would run into Australian people. I ran into an old friend who's like, so I did. I packed up, didn't know anyone there. I backpacked for 3 months, snorkeled in the reef, saw all the things, traveled and met all the people. And I also remember you saying back in the day, one of the most important things that you should do, because I've always been so social and surrounded by people. You were very serious. You're like, when's the last time you went and ate dinner by yourself? And I was like, never. You're like, when's the last time you went to a movie by yourself? And I was like, never. And I ended up practicing those things basically for this big Australian trip. And then I got used to going to movies by myself there and dinners by myself, because I was essentially by myself, meeting people as I went. And it was incredible. It taught me how to enjoy my own company, not always to be surrounded by people. And people in general, when they meet me, they think I'm quite extroverted, but I do really like my alone time. I mean, I need that to fuel up. And essentially, it was such a formative year that when I came back home after, well, I was supposed to come home in 3 months, came home a year later, and then I came home for 9 months and I still felt like something was missing. So I wanted to work on the Olympics in London because I missed the Vancouver Games. I was in Australia. I'm watching them from there going, this is the worst timing. I should be in Vancouver. So I come home for a year and I'm like, I'll go work on the games in London. And everyone was like, you don't know anyone in London. How are you going to get a job there? And I was like, I'll figure it out. So I just got up and I left and ended up there for 2 years. So
hey, guess what? You figured it out.
You just do, right? That's what it is. Like you need to believe that you can more than anything. I just read this little thing, this little quote that it's like, willpower is 2 times more a greater predictor of your academic performance than IQ. So you could be so smart, but if you work hard, if you like, you are twice as more likely to get ahead, right? Like we all know that. So it doesn't matter how smart you are. Like you could be intimidated by the smartest kid in your class or this person that outputs so much, but it's like, if you have the tenacity and the will to do it, and if you're going to strive for it, you will get what you're wanting.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think willpower is one of the like superpowers that everyone has. Like what I vision in my head is like a needle, like a syringe. How much willpower do you want to put in here and inject in yourself, right? Like, do you want to put 5 mils? Do you want to put 10 mils? Like, how much do you want to put in there? And I really do think that is like one of our human superpowers that everyone has. You just have that ability to choose your willpower in life. So
It's how badly you want it, right? Like how badly do you want to go after something and do you want to really pursue it? We've seen the people that work hard, work relentlessly, and they get it. And then there's other people who think that it happens overnight. And I think we live in a world of overnight success and overnight
Yeah.
what looks like it, right? Like this whole facade. So I
Yes.
think that's where it's really tricky not to get caught up in that, because people look at the Instagrammers and TikTokers and, you know, everyone's doing these social media, whatever it is, because they think they can get it, but people don't realize how hard they've worked to get
Yes.
them to where they are. A lot of those online bloggers
Yeah.
that we see, or these Insta famous people that we see, they've been blogging for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
They've built that community, they've done the work. And now, yes, they know how to handle public speaking, your persona, your profile, all those kind of things. So I think there's a big misconception for a lot of students and people that it's like, well, you know, I can go and pound the pavement every single day, but there's no result at the end of it. And I think that's such a big misconception, because a lot of people that have gotten to where they are, like talk to your parents, talk to people for like, they've worked really hard to get there. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen overnight. You have to understand that it's never a linear straight path. I mean, kudos to those who have had a straight path. I have not. But I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Right.
But like, yeah, literally, like the job I'm in now, I love it. And I was dreaming of that job over 10 years ago when I left Spain. But I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in private, I'm now in public. Like I've worked in every sector, and I've had, in hindsight, like so many random jobs, but all those random jobs served a purpose.
Right.
And they all led me to where I am today. And I wouldn't change a thing about it, you know? But I think people have this like idea that it's like this straight line. And it just isn't, you know?
Life
Maybe,
isn't.
yeah, maybe it was like a generation ago,
It
but
was.
it just isn't anymore.
It was for our parents, and it's not for us. And now it's changing even more rapidly as it goes. Like it's changing even quickly. What did you have to let go of to be where you are now? Like what's something you really had to let go of?
One of the things I think I've had to let go of is stability. Like I have quit jobs cold turkey without having anything lined up, because the job and company was fundamentally just not aligned with my values and who I am. And I think having the courage to leave and say no to something many people told me was risky was one of the best things I did for myself. And it led me to reflect and reconsider what it is that I really want and what my values are. And I've honestly, like, I've left many jobs because of that. But the risks have paid off, right? Like, I'll share about the job I'm in right now. I'd been doing government relations for one of the finance sectors for a few years. And I'd come to the realization that I loved government relations and advocacy work, but credit unions and finance just, it wasn't my true.
It doesn't light you up.
It wasn't my jam.
I know you, and I'm like
It
that.
wasn't my jam.
Yeah, you were doing it because it was good.
I knew it served a purpose, and I wanted to get into social issues. So fast forward to January 2016, I was about 8 weeks pregnant. A colleague sent me a listing for this job that I'm in, but it was a temporary role at the time for 8 months. I was pregnant, and not knowing what the next chapter would look like, I just closed the link and was like, no, I can't do this. I casually brought it up with my husband that night, and he was like, you should apply for it. Because he knows me, and he's like, this is your dream job. Like you need to apply for this. I ended up applying, and long story short, I left my full-time, stable, permanent position while I was pregnant for a temporary role that would end right before I had my baby, with no job to go back to. But I just knew, I was like, I have to do this. So I started the job when I was 4 months pregnant. And by the time I was 8.5 months pregnant, I was about to go on maternity leave, I was offered a full-time job to come back to after my mat leave. And I share this to say that, like, the braver we are, the more rewarded we are, the luckier we get. I truly, truly believe that. So I think the whole like stability, I've had to let go of that to
get to where you are, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
would have been, not many people who would have been pregnant would get up to go get another job and then potentially to not have a job after, or benefits during your pregnancy. Like that's actually, it sounds
Oh,
crazy when you
huge.
think about
Like,
it. And I remember you going through these motions at the time, and I was like, you couldn't believe you kept getting through it and getting
oh
it
my
because you
gosh.
were just like, let me
I
just
remember
try
going to my boss and quitting, and she was like, Sonja, you have everything here, you have benefits. And I was like, yeah, but I'm just not supposed to be here anymore. Like,
it.
I know that is crazy and all of that, but I just knew that it was gonna work out. And I know I got so many side eyes when I was leaving,
Mhm.
and even starting at a new job pregnant with
Mhm.
a team that I was supposed to manage. I was like, you just gotta go for it when you know. You got to
Yeah.
listen to that feeling. Okay, what about you? Tell me about a time where you've had to let go of something to be where you are now.
I think for me, a big one was I had a vision of where I was going to be at a certain age. And, I'm big on vision and goal settings and all that kind of stuff. So I think I always knew I wanted to be my own boss. And by 30, that was a number. I
Mhm.
was going to be my own boss and be doing my own thing. So when I came back from London and I'd worked on the Olympics there and had this incredible experience, I came back, I was 30 and I wasn't my own boss. I was now back in Vancouver trying to find a job. I tried living there, it didn't work out visa wise. So the moment I let go of the thought of where I had to be at a certain age, because I think we all do that. We want to have, whatever it may be in our lives, job
Mhm.
at a certain age, kids at a certain age. Like there's a timeline that we're always
Yeah.
fighting. The moment I let that go, I felt so much freer. I was like, right,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm not my own boss by 30, but I did just get to travel all around Europe and meet all these, it's something I would have never
Trade-offs.
imagined. So it's one of those things. I came back at 30, and the huge thing that I had to let go of was my ego because again with you, and you don't realize this, you're always a part of my next step. You were running a marathon and you had to go and get a t-shirt from Lululemon because you had a gift card, and they were having a private event at the Robson Street store. Long
I
story
wanted my
short,
marathon outfit. I
yes.
wanted the marathon shirt.
Yeah, we banged on the door. It looked like they were open, but they weren't. They were having a pride event. The
Mhm.
manager at the time opened up the door. You knew her because you'd worked with her
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
She let you in. She let you shop. And then you basically were like, hey, he's looking for a gig. She's like, we're opening up a new store. Anyway, at 30, I didn't want to go fold pants at a retail store. I'd never done it. It was one of those things where I was like, well, I don't need to. I just worked on the Olympics in London. I'm not going to go fold pants.
Yeah.
And I ended up meeting her. She was great. And then again, all the signs just pointed that direction. And that weekend, I randomly met 4 people who work for the company. I'd never met anyone in that company before. They all said that'd be great. And they were all like, just get into the store, get in, and then you can get further. And from there, I ended up getting in there, folding pants for 2.5 years, meeting everyone I knew at that office. I tried to get a role in their head office. It didn't work out. But from that, I ended up teaching spin, ended up meeting my next boss. Like it just
Yeah.
panned out. It worked out. But the point is like, you need to let go of that
Yes.
ego, listen to your gut, listen to that instinct.
Mhm.
Everything was pointing that direction. You just have to do it sometimes, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't.
Everyone starts small, right? Like, I think that's what people need to remember. Everyone, not small, but like you do have to suck it up and just
You just have to do
start
it.
somewhere.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what age you're at, it doesn't matter
No.
how many degrees you have. You have to
Yeah.
look at the circumstantial, the situation, like what we're going through right now as well with being in a pandemic, everyone's working from home. There's a lot, and I know a lot of people are probably struggling to find jobs and things like that, where it's like you just have to kind of maybe pivot and find
Yeah.
something different
Yeah.
and figure it out and go from there. Like, no, it's gonna work out.
It always does. I have one question for you,
Oh,
and we'll have to be quick, but what advice do you wish you knew then that you know now?
like be nice to everyone. Doesn't
Mm,
matter where you go, be nice to
mhm.
everyone because it really is a lot of who you know and not what you know. That's been a key factor in my world. It's been
Yeah,
connecting, it's been meeting people
100%.
digitally, in person, whatever it is. Um, I think a big one for me is, yeah, to be nice to everyone. And honestly, I wish I knew back then that it's gonna work out. Things are gonna
Mm,
flow in the way they're
yeah,
supposed to flow. Like,
yeah,
don't stress, don't panic. When you get laid off, like, enjoy that time because you won't get it again. Like, just follow the rhythm of the way things are supposed to happen. without constantly trying to control everything, like
Yeah.
let go of the control.
Like it sounds simple and cliche, but everything will be okay. Like it always works out. But I think a part of that, you have to be flexible and you have to be adaptable, because if you're not able to pivot and be adaptable, things just become so much harder. And I think that there's so much room for growth and opportunity when you are open and you're flexible and adaptable. And people see that, right? Like people see when you are flexible and adaptable. And yeah, I really think that it will serve you so well in life. And whether it's parenting, whether it's your career, whether it is, just your own personal goals. Like if you have a certain goal, like of being your own boss by 30 and you're not, like, it's okay. Life happens. So you just have to be able to pivot and shift. So,
And I think not beat yourself up, right? Like I
yeah,
think it's letting go of those expectations. You can't beat yourself up if that vision that you had doesn't happen. A quick example too, I know a lot of women, I have a lot of friends that are girls, they want to have the husband and the kids and there's a timeline running against them.
yeah.
So it's like, you can't necessarily always control those things. Like
No.
you just have to kind of go with it.
Go with it. Yeah. And just like accept it,
And
right? Like
kind
accept
to
that.
yourself.
Don't just do it just to do it, but like accept it and be okay with it. Like
Right.
let it sit, right? Like let it sink in and accept it. And know that there's more. That's not the end, right?
Amen.
Okay.
That's us.
That's us. In a nutshell, we could have kept talking for hours, probably. Yeah. Honestly, it was such a pleasure to talk to you on this level. I'm so grateful that you're a part of my journey, and you have always been in my corner with all my big decisions in my life. So I'm very thankful for you.
And the feeling is mutual. I'm just so happy that BCIT introduced us, because
I know. And I hope we can do this in person.
That would be really nice.
All settles. It would just be nice to have face-to-face with students, because I've been there. We've been there. It's hard. It's hard. But just, it's going to be okay.
Hang tight.
Hang tight.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.